I never thought a single evening could unravel everything I believed about love, about family, and about myself. But that night, the night of my wedding, proved how fragile certainty could be. Before I walked down that aisle, I thought I knew the story. My husband, Daniel, was a man of impeccable charm, success, and devotion. He came from a family I had always admired from afar, affluent, polished, the kind you only see in magazines. I was different. Ordinary, quiet, a little naive in the ways of the world. And yet, somehow, he had chosen me, or so I thought. The air in the grand hall was thick with the scent of roses and the soft hum of conversation. Guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits circled around tables lit by crystal chandeliers. My heart raced, but not just from excitement. There was a subtle tension I couldn't place. Something about the way Daniel's mother, Margaret, watched me from across the room. It was the kind of gaze that measured everything, weighed everything, and found it wanting. I brushed it off as nerves. After all, weddings always came with a little pressure, didn't they? And then she arrived. Caroline, Daniel's ex. I had heard of her, of course, whispered stories of the girl who had been his first love, the one who supposedly broke his heart before I came into the picture. She was quiet, poised, and breathtakingly composed, the kind of woman who commanded attention without speaking a word. I remember the first moment I saw her, the little flicker of envy that ignited inside me. I had rehearsed my reaction countless times in my mind, imagining the perfect blend of grace and superiority I would project. I didn't plan to humiliate her, of course, not in a way that would later haunt me, but the temptation was irresistible. When she approached, delicate smile in place, I laughed lightly, the kind of laugh that hides the edge beneath, and said loudly enough for half the room to hear, "Well, isn't this a surprise? I almost didn't recognize you without the drama, Caroline. You always did love being the center of attention, didn't you? Funny how life moves on and some of us end up as nobodies." I felt the chuckle escape me before the words even settled. And then I saw it. Not anger, not shame, but a flash of something I couldn't quite read, something painful yet strangely serene. She simply nodded, smiled, and excused herself. The room was silent for a heartbeat, then laughter erupted from the group I had intended to impress. I thought I had won the first round. My husband's eyes, however, had gone cold. Hours later, as the dinner progressed and the champagne flowed, I felt a strange unease. Something had shifted, though I couldn't pinpoint it. Daniel was quieter than usual, and Margaret kept glancing at me with a look I could not decipher. The band played, couples swayed, and I forced myself to smile, convincing myself that I had simply shown a touch of playful superiority. I didn't realize I had stepped into a story far more complicated than I could ever imagine. Later, when Daniel pulled me aside near the terrace, I expected a soft reprimand or perhaps forgiveness. Instead, his expression was grave, a tight line across his lips. "There's something you need to know about Caroline," he said, voice low, almost hesitant. My heart skipped. "It's not what you think." I laughed nervously, trying to mask my panic. "I don't think anything, Daniel. She's your past, that's all." "No, it's more than that," he whispered. "Caroline, she's been a part of this family in ways you'll never understand. I should have told you before tonight." And in that moment, I realized how dangerously close I had come to humiliating the wrong person. Something in his eyes warned me that my little joke, my cruel little triumph, might not only fail, it might destroy everything I thought I had. Before we go any further, pause and imagine this. What would you do if the person you mocked so cruelly turned out to hold your world in their hands? If you realized, too late, that your perception of power and superiority was entirely wrong? This story isn't just drama. It's a lesson in humility, in understanding the invisible threads that hold families together. And trust me, the twists are far from over. Stay with me. You won't believe what happens next. Daniel's words hung in the air like smoke from a candle I hadn't yet noticed. I looked at him, heart hammering, waiting for him to explain. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I had always found endearing, but tonight it only amplified my anxiety. "Caroline, she's not just an ex," he began, his voice strained. She raised me, after my mother walked away." I blinked. The words didn't register at first. I laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of sick joke. "Raised you? What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine as if begging me to understand. "When I was a child, my mother left. She abandoned me. Caroline's mother, your husband's mother, took me in for years, cared for me when no one else did. Caroline was there through it all, guiding me, protecting me. She practically raised me. I felt the room spin. My stomach twisted, nausea rising like a tide. I had mocked the woman who had saved my husband's childhood, who had been the anchor he clung to when his world collapsed. My laugh, my cruel words, my smug little performance, every syllable felt like a knife I had stabbed into the wrong heart. "Wait," I stammered, trying to grasp the enormity of it. "You're saying she was like a mother to you?" Daniel nodded, jaw tight. "She was everything my mother should have been, and tonight you humiliated her, in front of everyone." My throat went dry. I had imagined Caroline as a rival, a threat, someone from the past whose presence I needed to dominate. But I hadn't considered that she carried history, love, sacrifice. The laughter I had relished, the satisfaction I had felt, it curdled in my chest into guilt so sharp it made me shiver. The noise of the wedding faded around me. I felt as if the walls of the hall had disappeared, leaving only Daniel, Caroline, and the echo of my arrogance. My mind raced, trying to undo what I had done, to take back words that could never be unsaid. But it was too late. Already I sensed the ripple effect: Daniel's disappointment, Margaret's stony gaze, Caroline's quiet dignity. And then, as if to underline my misstep, Caroline approached again. This time she didn't flinch, didn't shrink, didn't look away. She stood before me calm, poised, her eyes steady and unflinching. "I heard what you said," she said softly. Her voice carried no anger, only a measured, quiet authority that made me falter. "And I want you to understand something. I've spent my life protecting Daniel, guiding him, raising him in ways you'll never comprehend. Your words tonight, they were cruel. But they can't undo the truth." I opened my mouth, but no words came. The laughter, the whispers, the admiration I had once thought I commanded, they vanished into thin air. I realized then that power was not measured in insults, or in appearances, or in who stood at the center of attention. Real power was silent. It was unwavering. It was Caroline. Daniel watched us both, his expression a mixture of disappointment and quiet pain. I wanted to reach for him, to beg for forgiveness, but I was paralyzed. I had stepped into a story far larger than my own ambition, one I didn't yet fully understand. And the worst part? The night was far from over. There were truths yet to surface, secrets that had been buried, and lessons that I was about to learn the hardest way possible. Take a moment here to imagine being in my shoes, seeing the person you intended to shame standing strong, calm, and unyielding, while the person you thought you knew looks at you with something between heartbreak and disbelief. Pause and reflect. How often do we act before we understand? How often do we judge without knowing the full story? This isn't just a wedding drama, it's a warning, a glimpse into the fragile balance of family, loyalty, and past sacrifices. And just when I thought the weight of my mistake had reached its peak, Margaret stepped forward. Her gaze, icy yet unreadable, fixed me in place. "You have no idea what you've done tonight," she said, each word deliberate, cutting through the air like a knife. My heart sank. I thought I had been prepared for anything. I was wrong. If you're feeling the tension yet, and want to see how this unfolds, the confrontation, the revelations, and the moments that could shatter my marriage before it even began, stay with me. You won't want to miss a single detail. Margaret's words hung in the air, heavier than any crystal chandelier above us. Her gaze pierced me, and for the first time I felt the full weight of my arrogance. She was quiet, controlled, but I could see the storm behind her eyes, the kind of storm that had weathered decades of betrayal, abandonment, and sacrifice. My stomach churned, and I realized with a sinking clarity that I had stepped into a world I barely understood. "You mocked Caroline," Margaret said slowly, each syllable deliberate. "And in doing so, you mocked the woman who made sure your husband had a childhood at all, the woman who was there when I was." Her voice didn't waver, yet it carried more force than any shouting could. I swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. My laughter, my sense of superiority, my little performance earlier, it all felt like ashes in my mouth. Daniel's hand on my arm was steady, but his eyes betrayed a depth of hurt I had never seen before. "Mom!" he started, but Margaret raised a hand, silencing him instantly. "No, Daniel," she said, her voice cold, precise. "She needs to understand. This isn't about teasing or rivalry. This is about respect. and right now she has none. I wanted to speak, to apologize, to explain myself, but the words were trap. Words pressed down on me. Pride had always been my shield, my way of navigating the world, but now it felt like a cage. I realized that if I wanted to survive this night with any shred of dignity, I needed to let go of everything I thought I knew about power, about superiority, about control. Daniel appeared beside me then, his hand brushing mine, a subtle touch, a silent connection. "I want you to understand her," he said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. "Not because I ask it of you, but because she is part of my life, part of me, and if you can't respect that, you can't truly be with me." I nodded, tears threatening to spill. The shame, the regret, the weight of my ignorance, it was all collapsing into a single moment of clarity. I understood now that this night, which I had imagined as the triumph of my love, was actually a test. A test not of beauty or charm, but of empathy, humility, and courage. Then came the revelation I hadn't expected, the one that made my breath catch and my mind reel. Caroline spoke again, softer this time, almost as if sharing a secret meant only for me. "There's more you don't know. More about Daniel, about me, about your husband's past. You mocked me, yes, but that's nothing compared to what his childhood cost us. You'll see soon enough, whether you're ready or not." Her words were a prelude to something I couldn't yet comprehend. A story, a secret, a truth buried beneath years of pain, love, and sacrifice. And I realized with a sense of dread that my journey through this night, the humiliation, the revelations, the lessons, was far from over. Take a moment to reflect here. Imagine discovering that the person you sought to belittle is not only integral to your partner's life, but has also endured trials and sacrifices you cannot imagine. The stakes are higher than pride. They are about understanding, love, and the hidden sacrifices that shape a family. And the night is just beginning. I could no longer avoid Margaret. Her gaze, sharp and measured, followed every move I made, a constant reminder that I was walking on a thin line between embarrassment and disaster. I swallowed hard, my palms damp, and approached her, unsure if I was prepared for the weight of the truth she held. Every fiber of my being screamed to flee, to hide, to disappear. But I had to face her. I had to understand. "Margaret," I began cautiously, my voice quivering despite my attempt at composure. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for how I treated Caroline. I didn't realize." Her eyes softened slightly, but the intensity remained. "Sorry isn't enough," she said, her tone firm but not cruel. "You need to understand the story. You mocked the woman who held your husband together when I couldn't. You mocked the one who made sure he had a childhood, a life, stability." I nodded, shame washing over me. "I see that now, I understand, I think. But why did Daniel tell me before tonight? Why keep this from me?" Margaret sighed, a deep, heavy sound that carried decades of regret and pain. "Because he needed to come to it himself. Because you needed to learn humility. Because the truth is complicated, and some truths can only be seen when the heart is ready." She paused, glancing toward Daniel, who was standing quietly nearby, his expression unreadable. "Daniel's childhood wasn't easy. I left him when he was very young. He had no one but Caroline and her mother for years. She guided him, protected him, loved him, and she did it quietly, without expectation, without recognition." My stomach twisted. Every careless word I had spoken, every laugh, every sneer, it was magnified in my mind, a testament to my ignorance. I felt sick. I had imagined this night as my triumph, my moment of power and grace. Instead, I had walked into a minefield I didn't even know existed. Margaret's voice softened. "You think you know sacrifice. You think you know love. But you haven't seen what it takes to love someone who has been abandoned, neglected, and betrayed by the ones who were supposed to care for them." I shivered. The weight of her words pressed down on me like a physical force. I had no idea," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I didn't know any of this. I never imagined." "Most people never do," she said, her gaze piercing. "And that is why tonight is a test. You've seen only the surface, but beneath it is a history of pain, courage, and resilience that shapes Daniel's entire life. If you can't honor that, if you can't respect that, then you will have no place in his life." I felt tears prick my eyes. The humiliation, the guilt, the panic, They were all coalescing into a single, undeniable truth. I had underestimated everyone, and I had underestimated the depth of this family's history. My pride, my desire to assert myself, my need to feel superior, it had blinded me completely. Then Margaret revealed something that made my heart stop, a twist I never expected. "You mocked Caroline tonight," she said, voice low, deliberate, "but you don't know everything. There are things she did for Daniel that I couldn't, and there are things he remembers, things even you don't know, that will change how you see this family and your place in it forever." I froze, my chest tightening. I had already made one monumental mistake. The idea that more revelations were coming, more truths that could shatter everything I thought I knew, was terrifying. The wedding, which I had imagined as a celebration, was becoming a crucible, testing my humility, empathy, and courage in ways I could not yet grasp. Daniel stepped closer, his hand brushing mine again, a quiet anchor in the storm of my emotions. "The night isn't over," he said softly, almost as if warning me, though his eyes held a hint of sorrow. "And the truths you're about to learn, they will change everything." Pause for a moment and picture standing where I was. Knowing that your arrogance has just humiliated someone who shaped your husband's entire life, feeling the judgment of the people who truly matter, and realizing that more secrets are about to come, ones that could unravel everything you thought you knew. The suspense is suffocating, and the night is far from over. The room felt impossibly still, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next revelation to land. I realized I was trembling, not from the chill of the evening, but from the weight of what I was about to hear. Daniel's past, Caroline's sacrifices, Margaret's unspoken regrets, all of it pressed down on me like a physical force. I could feel my heart beating in my ears, a frantic rhythm that mirrored the storm of panic and guilt inside me. Daniel's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of sorrow and quiet resolve. "You need to know everything," he said, his voice low but steady. "It's the only way you can understand." I nodded, though my throat felt tight. The gravity of the situation made me almost forget how to breathe. Margaret took a deep breath and began, her voice calm, precise, and almost ceremonial in its delivery. "When Daniel was 6, I walked away. It wasn't because I didn't love him. It was because I thought I couldn't be the mother he needed. I was flawed, overwhelmed, selfish. I left him in the care of Caroline and her mother, and they raised him. They provided stability, love, guidance, everything I failed to give. But it wasn't easy. Caroline's mother fell ill when Daniel was 10. He had to rely entirely on Caroline, her guidance, her strength, her sacrifices, just to survive. I felt my stomach drop. Every careless word I had spoken earlier, every mocking laugh, every sense of superiority, I had hurled it at someone whose strength had saved my husband's life more than once. The weight of that reality was suffocating. Daniel's voice, soft but firm, joined Margaret's. "I owe everything to her. My childhood, my sense of self, my survival, it's all because of Caroline. She was my rock, my guardian, my family. And tonight, I watched you mock her. You didn't just insult an ex, you insulted the very foundation of my life." I wanted to cry, to scream, to disappear into the floor. Shame and guilt churned inside me like a storm. I had believed I was clever, that I could assert my place, that I could shine. Instead, I had been blind, arrogant, and cruel. Then Caroline spoke, her voice calm, unwavering, carrying the weight of years of sacrifice. "I didn't do any of it for recognition. I didn't do it for applause. I did it because it was right. I raised Daniel because he deserved love and guidance when his own family failed him. And tonight, you treated me like a nothing." Her words were like a mirror, reflecting my deepest faults. I saw myself, not the confident, composed bride I had imagined, but someone naive, arrogant, and cruel. Every laugh, every joke, every whisper of superiority, it was all exposed, raw, and undeniable. I understand," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I see it now. I was wrong. I mocked someone I should have admired, someone who shaped the person I love more than anyone else." Caroline's gaze softened slightly, though her composure remained intact. "Understanding is the first step, but tonight is also a test. Your next words, your next actions, will show whether you can move beyond pride and arrogance, or whether you will continue to hurt the people who matter most." Daniel took my hand, a quiet anchor in the storm of revelations. "You've seen only part of the story," he said. "The rest you'll learn soon, but this is your chance. You can choose humility, empathy, and respect, or you can continue down the path of ignorance and regret." I felt the full weight of the lesson pressing down on me. The night, which I had imagined as a triumph, was instead a crucible. I had been forced to confront my ignorance, my cruelty, and my pride. And I realized, if I wanted any hope of redemption, I had to act. Not with clever words or smug superiority. B was steady, but his eyes held a tension I had never seen before, an almost fragile vulnerability that made my heart ache. "You need to hear this," he said quietly. "It's part of my life, my history, and the reason I am who I am. You mocked Caroline without understanding it, and tonight, you will see why that mistake matters more than you think." My throat tightened. I nodded, words failing me. The guilt, the panic, and the fear of what was coming combined into a storm I could barely weather. I had imagined this night as a celebration, a triumph, a testament to my love and charm. Instead, it had become a crucible, forcing me to confront my arrogance, ignorance, and cruelty. Caroline took a deliberate step closer, her eyes locking on mine. "When Daniel was 10, his mother, your husband's mother, walked away completely. She left him with no guidance, no protection, and no one to ensure he survived childhood's chaos. It was me, my mother, and I who stepped in. I became his guardian in every way. I not only raised him, but I also made choices that saved him from people, situations, and even himself that no one else could have intervened in. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of fear, I bore it so he could live and grow into the man he is today." I felt the world tilt. My laughter, my smug sense of superiority, every cruel joke, it all came crashing down on me. I had mocked the one person who had literally shaped my husband's survival, his resilience, and his very sense of self. The enormity of it was almost unbearable. Margaret stepped forward, her eyes glistening with the weight of unspoken emotions. "You have no idea," she said, her voice low but filled with intensity. "No idea of the battles she fought, the sacrifices she made, the nights she spent worrying if your husband would make it through childhood. And yet you thought it was clever to humiliate her. You thought you were asserting power. You were blind." Daniel's hand squeezed mine, his voice almost a whisper. "Tonight, you see her strength. You see the truth. But you also need to understand the stakes. The smallest word, the slightest arrogance could undo trust, undo relationships, and undo the fragile bonds that keep a family together. You have the chance to make it right, or to fail completely." I felt tears sting my eyes. Humiliation, guilt, and terror twisted inside me. My mind reeled at the realization. I had been confronted not only with my arrogance, but with the living proof of sacrifice, love, and resilience that had shaped my husband into the man I thought I knew. I had mocked the foundation of his life. And worse, the night wasn't over. Caroline's voice, calm but with a quiet force, broke through my spiraling thoughts. "If you want to be part of this family, you will need to listen, to learn, and to act with humility. The lessons tonight aren't over. You mocked me once, but the choices you make now will determine whether you belong in Daniel's life, or whether you will be left outside, staring in, wondering how it all fell apart." I could feel every word sink into me, each syllable a hammer pounding away at my pride. The weight of the revelations, the moral reckoning, the emotional truth, they were almost unbearable. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the next moments of the night would test me in ways I had never imagined, forcing me to confront not only the past, but the consequences of my own actions. Pause for a moment and imagine standing where I stood, realizing you have mocked the very person who saved your spouse's life, seeing the depth of their sacrifices, feeling your pride collapse, and knowing that the next choices you make will determine whether you have a place in the family or are forever outside looking in. The suspense, the emotional tension, the moral stakes, they are suffocating. And the climax is approaching faster than I could have imagined. The hall seemed to shrink around me. Every glance, every whisper, every footstep felt amplified, pressing against the raw nerve of my shame. I stood frozen, caught between fear and the unbearable weight of realization. Caroline's presence was magnetic, calm but unyielding, and I understood that the story I thought I knew about Daniel, about his family, and about myself was unraveling before my eyes. "I need you to understand fully," Caroline said, her voice steady, but every word carried the weight of years spent protecting Daniel, guiding him, loving him through impossible circumstances. "It wasn't just that I raised him when his mother left. I made choices you can't imagine. Decisions that cost me, that tested every ounce of my strength, just so he could have a life worth living. And you mocked me, laughed at the sacrifices that built the man you married tonight." I felt the tears spill over now, unbidden, hot against my cheeks. The humiliation, the regret, the terror of what I'd done, they were all crashing in waves. I had thought I understood love, commitment, power, but I had been blind, so desperately blind. Daniel's hand found mine, a tether in the storm of revelations. His touch was grounding, but his eyes were filled with a quiet sorrow. "You've seen the consequences of pride, of ignorance, of cruelty," he said softly. "Tonight isn't just about the wedding. It's about understanding what it takes to love someone who has been through more than you'll ever know. Can you see it?" I nodded, my voice trembling. I see it now. I understand more than I ever thought I could. I was wrong. I mocked you for being strong when I should have been grateful, for being selfless when I was arrogant, for being the backbone of my husband's life when I— "Stop," Caroline interrupted, not harshly but firmly. "Stop with excuses. Stop with explanations. What matters now is what you do. Words can't fix this. Actions will. Your choices from this moment forward will define whether you are truly part of Daniel's life, or whether you will forever be outside, staring in, wondering why everything fell apart." Margaret stepped closer, her eyes softening but her authority intact. "It's time to see the final truth. The last piece of what has shaped this family, this man, and the sacrifices that made him who he is. You've seen the surface tonight, the things that hurt and humbled you. Now you will see the depth, the hardest part to bear, but the one you cannot ignore." I felt my stomach twist. Every fiber of my being screamed that I wasn't ready, that I couldn't handle the full truth. But the tension in the room left no escape. The silence pressed against me until I had no choice but to lean into it, to face whatever was coming. Caroline's voice lowered, almost a whisper now, yet it carried through me like a lightning bolt. "When Daniel's mother left, I didn't just raise him. I shielded him from danger, from despair, from the people who might have broken him. I sacrificed opportunities, friendships, even love, so that he could have stability, guidance, and hope. Every sleepless night, every fight I endured silently, every tear I swallowed was for him. And tonight, when you laughed at me, you dismissed that. You mocked the woman who saved his life." I felt my knees weaken, my chest tighten, my sense of self collapse. The reality was unbearable. I had imagined control, admiration, triumph, but I had been blind. I had mocked the very foundation of my husband's life, and the consequences were immediate, undeniable, and suffocating. Daniel squeezed my hand, his voice a lifeline. "It's not just about understanding Caroline. It's about understanding the cost of love, sacrifice, and family. Can you handle that truth? Can you step into humility, empathy, and respect, or will pride destroy your place in my life forever?" I knew the answer. I didn't just want to survive this night. I wanted to prove I could honor it. I wanted to make amends, to act, to step into the lesson I had been so foolish to ignore. The choice lay before me: pride or humility, arrogance or understanding, isolation or connection. And in that moment, I realized the enormity of what I had to do, and the night had not yet revealed its final, most shocking twist. The hall seemed to disappear around me. Music, laughter, the clinking of glasses, they all melted into a suffocating silence that demanded attention. I realized that the moment had arrived, the revelation that would reshape everything I thought I knew about Daniel, about Caroline, about the family I had so arrogantly tried to impress. Caroline stepped forward, her posture calm, her gaze unflinching. "There's something you've never known," she began, her voice quiet yet heavy with authority. "Something that not even Daniel fully understood for many years." Daniel's hand on mine tightened. He didn't speak, but the tension in his shoulders mirrored the weight of what was about to come. "I didn't just raise him in the absence of his mother," Caroline continued. "I became the person he could depend on when his own mother walked away. But there's more. You mocked me for being a nobody, for being insignificant. Yet the truth is, I was the one who shaped every part of him, who made sure he could survive when the world abandoned him. I gave up everything I had, my career, my personal life, even people who cared about me, so that he could have a future. And tonight, you ridiculed that sacrifice without realizing it. I felt the room tilt. Every mocking comment, every sneer, every subtle attempt to elevate myself above her, it all crashed down like a landslide on my mind. The realization was brutal. I had humiliated the person who had literally saved my husband's life, who had fought to make him whole when his own mother had left him fractured and alone. Margaret stepped closer, her expression softening but her words sharp. "There is one last truth," she said. "The hardest to bear. Daniel's mother left not because she didn't love him, but because they are. Humility and empathy are not weaknesses. They are the keys to understanding, connection, and true love. Thank you for witnessing this journey with me. If you want more real, emotional, and suspenseful stories about love, marriage, and family, stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat and leave your heart racing, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next.